Welcome to this ATA Insights webinar. Thank you for your ongoing interest and support of our webinar program. Today's session will begin in 2 minutes. ATA Insights Webinars is an online platform for the dissemination of professional renewable energy knowledge across international borders. Our aim is to democratize access to information, for innovation to spread faster, and to make the industry more competitive. And we do this through our online sessions, open to all our members. Every year we do more than 100 sessions with over 250 speakers, 50,000 attendees from more than 50 countries. To participate in the session today, use the chat on the right-hand side to introduce yourself, your company, and where you're joining from. Under the screen, you will find the Q&A box, where you can send your questions for the speakers. We will get to as many as we can today. We're recording this session, and we will send you a link to the materials in a few days. Please consider supporting our content creation for the webinar program. Contact us on the email on screen. Welcome.
Hello, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you for being here with us today at ATA Insights. So today we'll have a very interesting webinar on how you can integrate large format modules and a cutting-edge tracker technology to get the lowest possible LCOE in the MENA region. So we'll have 3 experts with us today. I'll sure to ask them to introduce themselves, but before that, I'd like to remind you of a couple of things. So one of them is that here at ATA Insights, we have a tradition, which is to ask members of the audience to share in the chat where they're joining from. So please, just drop us a line on the chat and say where you are joining from. And today I am joining from Berlin, which is not so sunny, but not the place where you're going to get the most yield out of solar energy. But yeah, I'm sure that we'll have people from all over the world sharing. So okay, so I'm going to stop sharing the screen here, and then I will get the other announcement I'd like to make is that for all of those who are in the audience, that we will definitely get you the recordings and the presentation. So, well, without further delay, then I'll get the speakers to introduce themselves in the order I'm seeing them in their camera. So Himanshu, if you could please just very briefly tell us who you are and what you do.
Thank you, Carlos. And let me begin by thanking everyone for attending this webinar, and also thanking Hussam from Aqua Power and Harshita from L&T for co-participating with us in this webinar. And also a special thank you to ATA team to organizing this event. Brief background about myself. My name is Himanshu. I am the Director of Business Development at NextTracker, and have been associated with NextTracker in the MENA region for over 6 years now, where we've started our operations in the region about 2015. And have scaled their operations, which we will talk about during the course of this presentation. And I look forward to talking to the audience today on the moving trends in the tracker industry vis-a-vis the evolving ecosystem of the large format modules. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Himanshu, for the introduction. And then I'd like Harshita to please introduce herself.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Carlos, and thank you, Himanshu. So this is Harshita here, Harshita S. Kumar. I currently head the Global Engineering of Renewable Business Unit of Larsen & Toubro. We are an EPC player, and before this particular assignment, I was heading the battery energy storage business within L&T. And it's a pleasure to be part of this webinar of organized by ATA. And I thank my fellow panelists, Mr. Himanshu, as well as Mr. Husam, to be part of this along with me. Thank you, everybody, and looking forward to a very nice session with all of you.
Thank you very much, Harshita. And then Husam, please, if you could introduce yourself, and then well, get ready to present, because you'll be the first one.
Okay, thank you, Carlos, and I'm gladly, to be here with you and Himanshu and Harshita for this session. I'm from Aquabor. I'm a director of business development. I've been with Aquabor for the last 5 years now, looking basically at the renewable project, primarily in Saudi Arabia, but also with some participation in the desalination project as well. And it was mainly Saudi Arabia, but it covered also some of the other projects in the region.
Great, thank you very much for the introduction, Husam. And when you're ready to start, if you could share your screen, and we'll start with your presentation.
Sure.
And just as always, I'd like to remind people in the audience that we are recording this session, so you'll get a recording and the slides as well a couple of days after the webinar. And yeah, and don't forget to actually pay attention to the presentation, so you can send questions. So it's your chance to ask questions live. We'll go through the round of questions after all presentations are done. So okay, so perfect. I can see your screen, Husam.
Okay.
It's full screen, so well, I'll leave the floor to you.
Well, thank you, Carlos, again. And so good morning or good afternoon to everyone in this session. Pleased to be with you again in actually presenting the developer's point of view when it comes to the large modules and the tracker technologies, and how the combination of those technologies can be deployed in future projects in a way that could help us competitively and reliably achieve lower LCOE, especially in the MENA region. My session today actually is, basically, for those who do not know Aquabor, Aquabor is a developer, owner and operator. We've started back in 2004 in Saudi Arabia, and we expanded our footprint to now, operating in 13 countries. We have currently around 41.6 gigawatt of generating power assets, and we have 6.4 million meter cube of desalinated water, all contracted. Those are all coming from 64 assets, with a total worth of 66 billion of assets under management. 33% of which of that portfolio is in renewable. We have more than 3,500 people working for us, coming from 30 different nationalities. And one of our goals was basically to be as much local as possible to the countries that we are in. So we have around 60% of our local force, and even local, part of our endeavors to localize our activities in the countries that we operate in. Effectively, we have been the shift of Aquabor has been more, and this is, I think, one of the areas that's of relevance when it comes to selecting new technologies and actually evaluating them, is basically the long-term view that we have for projects that we participate in. Being a developer, owner and operator, this mix or this combination or this business model drives us to take always a long-term view. We are not in new project because we want to be there for a few years and then we leave. In fact, we are there to stay until the last minute. That may change from one project to another depending on the situations, but generally speaking, we are long-term investors, long-term developers, and we are operators. And therefore, when it comes to the selection of, basically when we put our configurations together for the new project, we take that view. We try to always be competitive, being a developer, respecting the clients, the lenders, and the insurance companies' requirements, and basically making sure that our proposals and our solutions are complete. When it comes to our role as an investor, as a long-term owner, we tend to make sure that at the end of the day, what we own is something that will bring us the values that we expected when we built those plants. And effectively, being the operator means that the burden of operating those plants will be on us through our subsidiary Nomac, and therefore, whenever we select the configurations, we make sure that our operator is also working with us in those evaluation and selection decisions. For us, cost leadership has been one of the, I would say, competitive advantages of Aquabor in the market. And that's basically, when we look at it, it's really a combination of both the technology and the pricing. We don't tend to just focus on one part of the equation. These two variables go hand in hand, and that will depend heavily on basically working in collaboration with our partners, the EPC contractors and the main equipment suppliers, in a way that effectively would bring the value, as we mentioned earlier, in the business model to us as a developer when it comes to winning the project, and as an owner and operator when it comes to operating and maintaining those plants. That's basically, but before we go into the specifics of how we do this, I think from a developer point of view, it's key that especially that the discussion here is on effectively the growth in the renewable energy projects and in the renewable domain. It has been quite obvious that there is an interest in the MENA region to make a shift towards renewables. Firstly, back in the early days when Morocco and Jordan and Egypt were exploring it because of the demand on power. Then the GCC countries, interestingly, being the hubs of oil and gas, moving into renewables. Now, I think, and we believe that with more discussion on climate change and more discussion on decarbonization, that will really contribute to the potential of renewables in the MENA region. So for us, we think that the decarbonization targets will be a key driver for that trend to continue and move on. The solar prices over the last few years, up until 2020, we have been also carefully observing the changes over in the course of 2020 and in 2021. Yet nothing has been tested as of how that will affect this potential of growth in the MENA region, but I think that's to be seen. Potential of storage solutions is something also that's hopefully and should contribute to the storage solution, to the growth of renewables in the region. And I think with more improvements and breakthrough in the technologies, the existing technologies as we know them, would definitely help, in solidifying those numbers that we see in front of us. The countries, the states have set out, their goals. I think what one needs to, keep an eye on is basically whether this will happen in the base that we expected or not. I think whether it will happen or not is something that we are beyond. It's happening. We see the experience in the GCC region, in Jordan, and in North Africa. Very promising results. Very promising. From a client, from a state, from a off-taker's point of view, as all of those projects have contributed to lowering the cost of power on those countries. But effectively, when it comes to to continue with the same base is going to be, we believe that this might change depending on the market situations. We are in a very, I think, special year, 2020 and 2021. That definitely will have some kind of an impact on how the clients will perceive the growth of renewables in the region. They might be conservative, but ultimately the result will prove itself. I think the story of the LCOEs in the region is probably well known to everyone. From where we started back in in the 200 megawatt Shu'a project in Dubai, all the way to the last tariff, or the last two tariffs that Ecuador. We were glad that we were associated with the last two numbers. In Shu'aib, 600 megawatt of 1.04 cent per kilowatt hour, and in Sudair, the 1,500 megawatt of 1.239. Two world records, one of which has actually achieved financial close, and it's now being constructed. And that's, at least from the engagement that we have with the market, especially the client side, this will continue to occupy how they see the LCOEs. They should go further down, and this will put pressure actually on us, the developer of those projects, the EPC contractors, and the supply chain. But that definitely will again, during this year, unfortunately, we have not had the chance to see projects going live, and whether there was any correction to the curve. I think there is only one project that's and it's the round 3 of the Ministry of Energy, the Saudi Ministry of Energy project, that's now being tendered. Our understanding that it's due to be announced. And that will tell us whether those, whether the curve will continue to go downwards, or it will correct itself. I'm giving more attention to there was other projects that are happening in Central Asia and all of that, but because of the different market factors that determine the LCOEs in these regions that are different from GCC, I think we should keep an eye on GCC. So I think the bottom line here is we need to see whether the next project will further bring the LCOEs down, and whether we will see a breakthrough to the 1.04 cent, or whether we will go and this curve will be corrected. So having all of that in mind, I think when it comes to the key considerations for selecting new technologies and integrating them into the new project, think this is the process that we all usually talk about when it comes to how we select. That's the discussion that we always have with our partners as EPC contractors and as main equipment suppliers, starting from the bottom, and that's how the selection process actually happens. I mean, usually lenders, clients, insurance companies come with their own kind of minimum set of requirements that we have to respect and we have to comply with. That's part of the qualifications and track record. These are the part of the qualification process, and it's always this is key for lenders, key for clients, key for insurance companies to see track records. And at the same time, there is a lot of innovations that are happening in the market. So, for suppliers, I think it's well known that they have always to find ways of establishing and demonstrate the capabilities of those new equipment, or at least to demonstrate that they are more or less an evolution of previous models, previous types. Then I think one of the key criteria for selection is the impact of the selection, or the impact of the new technology, or the new configuration on the performance or generation. And it's not just only a matter of plugging a number and trying to see the model and the simulation and what it will bring. It's in fact it's about ultimately how this will be demonstrated and guaranteed. As most of the projects, especially at the utility scale projects, we are constrained by the project finance arrangements, and that means that we are bound by a very specific set of contractual arrangements and structure with the EPC contractors and between the EPC contractors and their main equipment suppliers. So it's a matter of demonstrating again to the lenders, to the client, to the EPC contractors, to the developers on one hand, and then contractually guaranteeing that without those two variables, it will be more or less on the either on the developers to believe in those technologies, or on the main equipment suppliers to say, well, we can do something about guaranteeing those promises on the performance. When it comes to capex, definitely these solutions have to be cost effective on their own. And one of the key considerations is that they should not affect the overall configuration by increasing the cost of other equipment, whether it's the cabling, whether it's the labor cost, whether it's the at the end of the day, we are looking at I'm talking about looking at it from a developer and also from an EPC contractor point of view. We are looking at the overall configuration. So making one improvement in one variable doesn't necessarily mean that everything will be the same. So the burden actually is on the providers of those solutions to demonstrate that whatever solutions they are bringing to the table is something that will be cost effective again on its own, and it will not have an impact on the overall configuration. And then again, given that especially that for us as we are doing the operation ourselves, impact on CapEx and OpEx is also key. So demonstration of reliability, safety, maintainability, operability, and how the spare parts, especially that we are seeing that the technology is moving in a fast pace, and that gives a bit of concern to the people that what would happen now to the existing technologies that we have now in our plants, if we are gonna end up making those technologies that we are having now obsolete in a few years, then what would happen to the spare parts? What would happen to the operability, to those, to the support, to the in-service support to those plants? So these are the set of, let's say, the considerations that, or the levels that we go through to decide on new technologies and integrating them into the plants. Now, when it comes to the large modules and trackers, they are no different. There are a set of expectations, let me put it this way, of what we expect from providers of large modules and tracker technologies. Definitely fitness for purpose, and that requires a lot of work in terms of understanding the new projects, the site specifics, making sure that the solution we are, we always believe that there is no one solution fits all, and all the promises that we see in the brochures and and in the presentations about the new technologies will need to be customized to show and to demonstrate relevance to the project. Otherwise, it will be good talks about new innovations and how the capabilities of those providers. But definitely, what we expect that the new solutions will offer is less cost of production, given that with the sizes of the new wafers, that hopefully will bring the cost down. Expectation is that this will bring higher module efficiency. Will definitely, as we have seen it before, will optimize the cost of logistics if this also get bundled with focus from the suppliers on how they ship those large modules to sites. Especially nowadays when we see that the cost of logistics have gone skyrocketing, and this means that availability of logistics is one issue, and then if we have them, the cost of shipping goods, materials through the oceans is something that's not it's not as easy as it used to be. So more focus on this area is expected with the large modules and tracker solutions. And that's also, that would trigger probably the discussion on localization and having I would say local presence, not necessarily in the sense of local as in every country is local, but at least as being within geographic proximity from the sites or from where the most of the projects are happening. And when it comes to GCC, we see the experience of the tracker solution with the local steel fabricators as one of the great examples that one would learn a lot from. Hopefully this will get extended to the module suppliers, and when we talk about Saudi Arabia alone having a plan of 58 gigawatts, that hopefully would trigger the discussion on having a local supplier of modules in the country or nearby. Now other consideration would also mean that cost of construction. So with larger modules, hopefully the number of labels would be less, cabling would be less, connection would be less. But that, I think, will need to be coupled with the other point, which is about making sure that this notion of large modules means heavier modules, and that means that more collaboration, more cooperation between module suppliers and tracker suppliers to rethink the cost of steel structure. And I think we are now dealing with multiple options, none of which I'm talking about the wafers. Multiple options, none of which has really taken or has become the mainstream solution. I think that's where the module suppliers, along with the tracker solution providers, along with the clients, their clients as EPC contractors and developers, need to work together on, working on some level of standardization that will bring certainty to the process of designing the plans, engineering those plans, and then constructing them. It's really going to be an issue if in every new project we will need to go through the learning curve of telling the labor and the engineers and the site supervisors how to put a tracker together along with the modules and ensuring that it's going to work. On top of that, with the robotics and that's adding to the complexity. So and also that's going to be extended to the operation and maintenance. So more standardization is something that we expect the market to achieve. It will take its, we believe that this will take its own time, but eventually, as it's the case in every other industry, it is something that we hope that we will get to shortly. With that point, I think what I believe is that's good that we see all those innovations, good that we see all those improvements and breakthroughs, and we are looking forward to more of those innovations and improvements. We are looking also forward to more of those dialogues and discussions to see from different point of views how the industry can work together to bring the industry to another level to match and meet the expectations of our stakeholders. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Hussam. Very interesting, and well, we've had a few questions come through as a result of it. We'll go through them after we have finished with our presentation. So now I'd like to give the floor to Harshita, who will be presenting next.
Yeah, thank you, Carlos.
So we've had 3 questions so far. I think all of them are very good questions. So yeah, we'll be going through them after all 3 speakers have presented. But yeah, don't keep that question to yourself. If you have one, just send it through, and we'll comment it. Harshita, I can see your presentation. If you can try to put it on full screen or presentation mode, and then I think you'll be able.
Yeah, is it in presentation mode now?
Well, now I can see the nodes mode. Okay. So maybe if you have 2 screens, then maybe you could change that on display settings at the top.
How is it now?
Now it's on full. Now it's perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're from. So thank you for this opportunity, and after the nice presentation by Mr. Hussam. So taking forward, we had seen from a developer's perspective. So I'll be talking from an EPC perspective. We are working with Aqua for a few of the projects. So how do we look at when we are working as an EPC in selecting and integrating large format modules and to achieve the lowest LCOE, considering MENA region. So briefly to touch upon L&T, so we are a $21 billion revenue company spread across the world, and with a AAA rating as well as more than 45,000 employees. We are available across the value chain with respect to power transmission and distribution, starting from power generation, which is solar generation, along with storage. So we have more than 5.2 gigawatt peak of solar experience with 130 megawatt hour of excess of BESS execution as well. And we have in-house substation and transmission line expertise, team members focused on that, businesses focused on that, with more than 240 substation commissioned in Middle East. including two 400 kV grid stations in Oman, more than 36,900 circuit kilometer of transmission lines, going up to voltage of 765 kV. We have done more than 800 AIS-GIS substations in India, including in India's first 1200 kV AIS and 765 kV GIS. Apart from that, we are also involved in distribution. That is the last end of the power transmission and distribution segment. So we have been electrifying various villages and cities in India with more than 156,263 habitations electrified so far. So many R&D centers within, as well as decades of experience with TL factories, battery integration factories, and many other factories inside, with presence in more than 300 project sites as well as 23 countries, with 2 international subsidiaries as well. So specific to MENA region, our power transmission and distribution business is well present in Middle East. With specific to renewables, we are doing 2 projects, large-scale projects in utility-scale projects in Saudi Arabia, one being around 1.8 gigawatt Sudair project, and the second being around 400 megawatt of Jeddah project, 300 megawatt AC. And we have in Middle East more than 500 staff and many 400 kV substations and 55 operating sites. More than 2,600 circuit kilometer of cabling, 4,000 circuit kilometer of OHL, and more than 300 substations done in Middle East. Similarly, in Africa, we are present in around 12 countries. We are operational with intention to go out in many other countries as well. And we have done many substations and transmission line jobs there, and with more than 200 staffs. So coming to the topic of today's discussion, this graph gives you an idea how the module wattage has changed over a period of time. As you can see, from 2009 to 2019, the increase in the wattage has been gradual. As you can see, the increase is maybe around 10-15 watt on a yearly basis. But with the dawn of 2019, there has been a tremendous increase in wattages. So as you can see here, from 2019, every half year, around 45 watt peak has increased, 45 to 50 watt peak has increased in the module wattage, and we have jumped from 400 watt peak in 2019 to almost 700 watt peak now in 2022, expected in 2022, with a lot of module manufacturers launching 700 watt peak as well. So there has been a dramatic increase in the module size, and people like the EPCs and the developers who are handling 300 watt peak or 400 watt peak till now have to suddenly adjust themselves to handle these large format modules going as high as 550 and even now up to 700. So what are the challenges or what are the changes which happens when we go with these kind of modules is what I will explain in the coming slides. So the trends towards large format modules, as you can see, with the changes in these modules, you are seeing this change in the cell size. So the cell size has increased from 156 mm in 2016 to almost 182 formats right now, 182 and 210. So there are a few module manufacturers who are collaborating for 182 mm cell size, while others are collaborating for 210. And depending on the cell size, the layout, and the configuration, you can see you are seeing variation in the module size as well. So earlier we were handling module size of area around 2 square meter, that is width of around 1 meter to length of around 2 meter. But now you can see the area of the module has increased by almost 40 to 50%, with the width ranging up to 1.3 meter and the length ranging up to 2.4 meter. So we have a much bigger module size to handle, which is heavier, and there are certain other aspects also changing, like voltage, current, etc., which needs to be taken care when we are designing, and hence which is having an impact on the cost. So the topic being LCOE and how LFM modules are contributing towards that. Just to briefly touch upon LCOE, all of us know that it is directly proportional to the cost and indirectly proportional to the generation, what can be produced from the plant. Hence, how do I reduce my cost as much as possible and increase my performance from the plant. That is the generation is what all of us look at, both from the developer and the EPC point of view. So in terms of cost, further you have the capex and the opex and few other financial costs as well as some residual value. And generation again depends on the performance. So module being the core equipment of the plant plays a vital role in determining the capex as well as the generation. So the capex further we divide into module cost, which forms the major portion, and then the BOS. And the BOS again depends on what kind of module we select and what kind of technology module we are selecting, whether it is N-type, P-type, etc. So assuming that the module, now with the large format modules, we understand that the manufacturing cost has reduced because of larger wafer size, etc. However, what price the module manufacturer offer us these large format modules, it also depends on that. Now, for this particular analysis, I'm assuming that the module cost on a per watt peak basis remains same, from 400 watt peak to as high as 600 as well, which may not be the case. So we need to again analyze that from a project specific basis. So assuming that the module cost on a per watt peak is same, then the major other factor which impacts the LCOE is the BOS cost. So how the design varies from one LFM module to another, as well as from the old 400 watt peak module to now, how does it vary? And similarly, the generation. What are the improvements which has happened in the modules over a period of time, which is helping us to get a better loss parameters and better gain parameters, and hence better generation. That also impacts on finally on the LCOE. So we need to look at various parameters to finally arrive the impact on the LCOE because of LFM. So what changes this has brought observed in large format module parameters are starting with the increase in the size. As I explained, in the size, the width has increased as high as 1.3 meter and length up to 2.4. And it is constantly in the upward trend. So associated with the size, you have the weight increase, then increase in current, and sometimes the voltage is also lesser, and increase in cell quantity when we are using the 182 mm cell size, and decrease in cell quantity when we are using the 210 mm cell size, and increase in efficiency also is found. We are getting modules as high as 22%. So performance-wise, there are better parameters which are coming in, which may be common, that need not be maybe linked to large format, but like multi-bus bar, and then high-density interconnections, various technology upgradations the module manufacturers are doing, because of which we are seeing better performance parameters also coming in from the modules, which is helping us in better generation as well. Just a graph showing the different modules, the large format modules which are available in the market. Just we have taken 5 samples just to give you an idea how the variations are there. So like as you can see, the cell numbers are varying from 132 to 156 for a typical 5 module cases which has been taken. The dimensions are also varying largely from 2.2 to 2.5. To 2.465, and similarly the ISC current is also varying from as low as 13.93 to as high as 18.47, and the module area as well is varying from 2.56 to 3.11. So as a EPC player, when we are looking at or a developer, when we are working with a developer, when we are looking at various modules, so you can understand these variations causes the variation in design. As our earlier speaker was telling, since the standardization is yet to come and the module manufacturer, the parameters as you can see here is varying, it impacts the design also accordingly, and we need to work out for each of these modules how it impacts the BOQ and accordingly the cost. So apart from when we start the bidding process, another key criteria, especially in Middle East region, in many times there are certain eligibility requirements or PQ requirements in the tender which we need to follow in terms of the PV modules as well as other equipments which need to incorporate these PV modules like tracker. So what is a PV module track record, past supplied, certain references. So that also makes a limit on what kind of wattage size we can select for the particular project. Apart from that, definitely we need to do due diligence in terms of the type test and certificates available from the vendors for the launched large format modules, whether it is available and whether it can be utilized or made available within the period by the time we win the project or execute it. Similarly, the compatibility of these modules with the tracker, I'm sure the next panelist will be explaining more on this. It is very important that the tracker, if we are doing a tracker-based projects, whether the tracker is capable of handling this large format modules with respect to and specific tests, whether it has been conducted in terms of internal test and tracker dynamic analysis tests, etc. So the compatibility of these selected tracker with the modules and its structural requirements need to be checked. Similarly, the adjustment of the store strategy, because it is larger sized and weight-based modules, how do we adjust that, as well as adjustment of the automatic robotic cleaning solution, because then you have a larger area and larger length over which the robotic cleaning has to happen. So that also comes into picture, which needs to be considered from the bidding stage itself. Because what we conceptualize in the bidding, finally, we need to implement it when we bag the job. Similarly, because of this rapid change in module sizes, now as we had seen in the earlier slide, it has increased from 400 watt peak to 600 to 700 now within a very short time period. So by the time we win the job and we start executing, it can happen that what modules we have envisaged during the bidding stage has now shifted from 400 watt peak to as high as 535 or 600. So how do we bring in that changes in the design, and whether, if at all we have gone ahead with 400, whether the manufacturers are will be producing still those modules in future, especially from a module replacement point of view, that also will bring up one challenge, especially during the wind-up stage. So in case these modules become obsolete, how do we handle that? And during replacement time, how do we adjust the existing design to suit for those higher wattage modules also becomes a point of concern for the developer as well as the EPC. So because of the change in the module size, what are the impact with respect to the tracker is presented here. So definitely with larger size module, there is an increase in the length of the torque tube, and hence the limitation which is dictated by the tracker torque tube length. So the amount of strings within a tracker gets limited sometimes if the module is not able to fit within that. The tracker height has to increase so that proper generation and performance of those modules is also being maintained. Increase in weight has associated impact on the structure and other requirements of the tracker. Sometimes, as I said earlier, it may result in lower strings per table because of the length constraints. It can also cause slow trigger because of the weight and the size considerations. The number of foundations per table also will change, and overall, because the number of tables may come down, the number of foundations can also reduce. So all this finally impacts the performance and reliability of the tracker itself, and the various tests which needs to be done by the tracker to suit these LFM modules becomes very important while we are selecting that. I'm sure NextTracker will be explaining this in more detail in the next session. Now, what about the other aspects in terms of the balance of system design? So how does it impact when we are going with an LFM module? LF module. Increase in size, which will need to, as the size of the module increases, it will lead to pitch adjustment. So we need to adjust the pitch to take care of the increase in the length. The changes in tracker configuration, as I explained earlier, the number of strings within a tracker may change, and also the layout changes to adjust the changed tracker configuration and meet the requirement as per the client in terms of capacity, etc. also will have to be adjusted while we are doing the design. Similarly, the increase in weight needs to be analyzed with respect to the wind speed of that particular location. So the site-specific wind speed and other soil-related studies which are done also has to be reanalyzed with respect to this LFM modules and associated tracker. It can also impact the structure weight and finally the foundation volume, as I explained earlier in the earlier slide. Increase in current and voltage. So depending on what kind of cell configuration and format we are using, it can result in the increase in current and voltage, which will have an impact on the fuse ratings, string size variations, and which will impact the SMP configuration and also the cable cross section. And finally, the increase in efficiency, which we are finding in few of these modules, which are reaching as high as 22%, It will result in reduction in the land requirement, better land utilization, reduction in area per megawatt peak, which further will lead to BOS reduction. So these are the impacts which can come in when we are moving towards more large format modules. Few of the limitations which also can come in is that with higher module dimension, it is limiting the 1P, 2P configurations. So whether we are having the type tested tracker design and adoptability by the tracker manufacturers, which already many of them are doing it, whether it will result in higher cost per watt peak because of the number of strings reduced for that particular configuration alone. This higher IMP and ISC, which leads to increase in cable cross section, which further impacts the BOS savings. It will have a negative impact on that. Handling of higher size modules at site during execution, how much it is going to impact the labor cost, because now we are handling a much bigger size module when compared to the earlier, as well as the precautions and safety measures which needs to be taken so that this is done in a proper manner. Logistics is another complexity which is adding, which was touched upon by the earlier speaker as well, because logistics is one of the price which has highly increased along with the module price increase what we are seeing in the recent days. And for a LF module, because it is not possible to be stacked in the similar manner of the earlier format modules because of size constraints. Now special packaging is also being considered where they are getting stacked vertically and other considerations. So will that result in higher logistics cost, which also we need to work out along with the module suppliers. So finally, all these aspects needs to be studied when we are looking at an LCOE point of view. So the final benefit with the large format modules depends on the overall plant configuration. It also depends on the site considerations, as well as the client requirements, client specifications, as well as client eligibility criteria. So all this needs to be taken into consideration when we are concluding the benefit of a particular LF module over another, or a particular LF module over the earlier type format modules to arrive at the final selection. And this has to be analyzed on a project specific basis. So thank you all. This was a short presentation from my end regarding the impact of LFM on LCOE and how do we go about selecting the right module for our projects. So you can reach me at the email ID as shown here for any further queries apart from the one which we answered during this forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Harshita, for your presentation. I can see that it has prompted some of the members of the audience to send questions. So that's great. And then, in the interest of time, I'm just going to give the floor to you, Himanshu, so you can give your presentation.
Thank you so much, Carlos. And I hope you're able to see my screen now.
Yeah, full screen and everything works well. So over to you.
Perfect. This is awesome. First of all, let me begin by thanking the fellow participants and the speakers on two very informative presentations. To summarize, the key themes I heard there were the track record and standardization. I think those were the two key major themes that I actually heard in those presentations. Let's just dive into this topic right now. Before we do that, let me just give a quick snapshot about NextTracker, who we are, and what we do in this space. As most of you may be aware, NextTracker is the global market share leader in the solar tracker space, with roughly about 50 gigawatts of trackers under operations or under construction worldwide. NextTracker maintains roughly about 30% market share over the last 6 years. So that's been a dominant forte for NextTracker. In terms of the parentage, NextTracker is owned by Flex, a listed corporation on NASDAQ Stock Exchange with about $24 billion of annual revenue. That makes us one of the most bankable tracker suppliers in the world. NextTracker has a very strong global presence, has about 550 employees worldwide in 8 offices spread across the world. In terms of our offerings, NextTracker offers the solar trackers and also software and control features that enhance the output from those tracker systems, which we will talk about in subsequent slides. And one key aspect of NextTracker is that we have a very experienced team which has a collective experience of over 300 years of PV execution. So the team is really coming in ground up, understanding the issues that developers and EPCs face when they're actually implementing these projects, and that helps us come out with products and services that actually address those needs. A quick snapshot of what NextTracker has done in the MENA region. Today, as we speak, we are just short of about 3 gigawatts of installations and operations in the region in terms of trackers. Our largest project in the region is the 1 gigawatt project in Dubai, the Deva 5, which is currently under execution right now as we speak. And NextTracker has also successfully completed the Sakaka project in Saudi Arabia, which is a 405 megawatt project in Saudi Arabia in 2019. And NextTracker has a local presence in Hyderabad in India, which deploys full set of technical workforce, engineers, application engineers, asset managers who are constantly looking at these assets in the region and trying to see how we can collaborate with our customers and improve performance of the plants that we operate on. In terms of the product offerings that we have, NextTracker offers 2 products, the NX Horizon and NX Gemini. One of the things that we talked about was the track record, and I'm happy to share that NX Horizon has completed over 50 gigawatts of tracker deployment worldwide. So that kind of sets up a benchmark in terms of the track record of the product itself. It is the 1 input rate configuration. The NX Gemini is a newer launch for a 2 input rate configuration for select sites, where there are certain challenges that need to be addressed. That's where we also have the NX Gemini option. In terms of some additional features that we offer, we have True Capture and NX Navigator. These are smart software and control platforms that can, through their innovations, enhance the overall monitoring precision of the plant, as well as enhance the energy yield by up to 6% in these plants, and basically help improve the generation, which, as Harshita mentioned, was one of the key aspects of improving the overall energy yield from the plants. All right, let's just come back to the topic that we were touching upon today, the large module formats, and how from an tracker supplier perspective, how it's going to impact us. Harshita had a very good slide which talks about the evolution of the trends in the module space. And I kind of used that to explain here, modules were fairly standardized till about 2018, even up to 2019. Very limited, changes in terms of the overall spec of the module, typically with the 2 meter by 1 meter spec, that was the standard. And now we have actually seen 2 different formats evolve in the industry in the module size over the last couple of years, the 182 mm cell and the 210 mm cell. And of course, then with their configurations and architecture driving multiple module configurations, right? This is something that has led to a bit of non-standardization on the module side, and then also causing, some things on the ecosystem itself, like the tracker design, the overall plant design. So that's really a call out, for the module industry to kind of look at, how we can start standardizing this. Let me quickly go into how these large formats modules actually impact the tracker design. So there are fundamentally two key aspects of the large module format: the increased size of the module, the increased width, the increased length of the module, and these potentially cause higher wind loads on the tracker system, on the module itself. They will require a higher driving torque to drive the whole row itself. So that's kind of increasing the power requirements that you need to drive the system. And the overall mounting impact, because now the module is bigger, you need to kind of have a much robust mounting mechanism. That's on the size related aspects. On the weight related aspects, because now obviously the module is bigger, it's also heavier. It's going to add things in terms of the hardware, whether what kind of structure the foundations, the sizing of those foundations increasing. That's one aspect of it, and also the time to install that Harshita mentioned, right? It's going to be a heavier module, so how does it actually impact the time to install on a per module basis? Those are some of the aspects that that it kind of impacts the tracker design. So where do we begin with? Okay, the first step really when we look at these large format modules is we start reanalyzing these bigger module formats for the length, the width. As most of you are aware, the longer the module becomes, the loads actually are a squared function of the length. So the longer the module becomes, the loads actually increase by a factor of 2x. And so that kind of results in reanalyzing these wind tunnel tests for these large format modules. It also starts impacting the number of modules that you have between two peers. You need to kind of have a standard, like how many modules of that category can actually be put between the two peers that you have in the row. And thirdly, the overall tracker length itself. Now with these bigger, wider modules, what would be the length of the tracker? That is something that the wind tunnel test will help us define in terms of the tracker design. So that is something that we actively work on. The second aspect, or the next level of analysis that we need or we do in terms of the tracker design with these large format modules is understand the dynamic modes on which the tracker operates. And this includes, understanding the aeroelastic effects that the tracker witnesses or the modules witness when they're on the trackers. Obviously the bigger module is going to be more impacted because of the wind. And these dynamic modes, these studies tell us, what those additional effects could be. And those are then analyzed and designed, taken into consideration for the tracker design. The third aspect, which is not very well understood, is in terms of how the frequent winds are going to impact the tracker design. So when we design trackers, it's not just the peak winds that affect, but constant, regular, steady winds will also impact the tracker design. And their effects are increased when we are looking at these larger format modules. So even constant lower wind speed can actually cause damages on the larger format modules. And so these wind studies will actually help us analyze those effects and then come out with suitable improvements on the tracker design to mitigate some of those those things that the large format module can cause on the design of the tracker. Apart from that, what's the next steps that we take? We constantly work with multiple large format modules, different modules from different manufacturers, each one having multiple dimensions. So we constantly look at those, constantly do testing. Array of test example here is like the mechanical load test that we do. We analyze the loading potential that the module can withstand and then try and optimize the tracker design around that. So there's a constant work that the tracker suppliers, us, and the module vendors actually undertake before we start qualifying and ensuring compatibility between the modules. So that's kind of addressing, some of the concerns that Kusham and Harshita mentioned in terms of the reliability of the product itself. Has it been tested? Has it been tested adequately? We also then move to an overall compatibility of the modules. So when we go to each module manufacturer, we look at their sizes, we look at these tests, we conduct those tests, and then eventually come out with the overall compatible design of the tracker and the module and overall mounting mechanism of the module. So that is some of the extensive work that we keep doing. And again, as the dimensions evolve, again, this becomes a constant work for the tracker suppliers, right? So we constantly need to upgrade it. Newer format modules comes, and this becomes a repetitive process for us. One key aspect that we want to highlight from a tracker perspective is not just looking at the module and the tracker in silos, but looking at the overall synergies at a system level when we look at that. For instance, when modules are selected, the pressures that the module will witness at a site will vary anywhere between 2 to 4x depending upon where the module is installed in the field. Is it installed in the interior portion of the layout? Is it installed in the exterior portion of the layout? And that's going to really determine the overall mounting mechanism for the modules and the tracker. And so an under-designed large format module is going to need more mechanical support to deliver the required pass load test, to deliver what is required from the module. So here is a very brief example. If you have a robust module, large format, that can actually just work with some light and medium mounting, right? And so you have a robust module, it's well designed, good frame, good strength in it. It's not going to have a penalty on the mounting side. But if it's a weaker module, so it's big, but it's a weaker module, it's then going to have, it'll start creating penalties on the mounting side, because then it needs a heavier mounting, it needs a heavier foundation or things like that. And this can act like a penalty on the installation or the mounting side. So things to look at when we are looking at not just the modules, but look at the module versus the overall system compatibility when we look at that. In general, we've been working with some of these larger format modules. We've seen the improvements, some of the points we touched upon earlier in the deck with the presentations. But in general, the power per tracker row has increased, right? So because of the heavier, the bigger modules, what we are able to deliver is now additional power per tracker row, and then more power per total area. So in general, both of these tend to have a positive effect in terms of the design improvements. They also tend to have impacts on the downstream aspect, which means lower labor cost, because now you need less labor or less number of rows to install because your power per row has increased. It helps in reduction in the number of piers or the foundations that the site may have, and can impact the reduction in the total wiring, because now you have less rows to install. And with the improvements in module efficiency, also sometimes less land area. So those are some of the benefits that we have on the large format modules compatible with the trackers. I would like to direct the audience to some additional resources on our website. There is a lot of material which talks about the synergies, the tests that we do, the wind tunnel test, and how those impact. And with that, Carlos, I hand it back to you, and happy to take a few questions.
Thank you very much, Himanshu, for your presentation. So let's go straight to the questions. We have a number of them right here. There is one actually I'd like to start with. It's the first question that was sent, and it's whether there is any insight regarding increasing module cost trends and general materials. So I see that Harshit, that you have already said that it's replied in writing that it's hard to say where things are going, but I also think it'd be interesting to hear your views, Hussam, on the module cost trends and cost trends in PV in general.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question actually, and it's and we are observing actually. As I said in my presentation, unfortunately during 2021 there hasn't been any active project in the region from which we can make a conclusion. The only tendering that we have seen in the GCC is the round 3 of the Ministry of Energy in Saudi Arabia, and we are due to see the results I think during this month or next month. And that would tell whether the likes of Ministry of Energy in Saudi Arabia or the other GCC countries will have the same excitement of going renewables and tendering more renewable projects, or they will just wait and see how the market will, until the market cool down a bit. Effectively, the burden ultimately is will be on them in the LCOE. And I think we have seen this in other industries. We have seen this in the desalination. We remember this from the days of the 2008 financial crisis. How clients, when it comes, the cost of financing, when there was no financing, or the cost of financing was high, that clients would tend to wait. So I think to answer the question, I think it's difficult to say at the moment, especially that this month of October and the next month will be also busy with high level discussions at the G20 summit, at the UN level, and the COP26, all of which are going to be very detrimental to the directions of the world, whether they will go further green or they will just wait until they see how the dynamics of we all see what's happening in China with the dual energy policy that was enforced recently. and on the other hand, the energy crisis that's happening in Europe. It's all, different forces acting against each other. So it's difficult at the moment to say that, with certainty, what would be the outcome, or at least what would be the decision at the client side. I think that's worth probably another discussion later in the year, or early next year when we come again probably to reflect on what happened during 2020 and 2021, and to see the outcome of all these discussions and how the markets, the commodity markets, China and Europe, are reacting to all of that. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer apart from just observing as everyone is doing at the moment.
Right. No, it's a very complicated scenario, I think. So yeah, it'd be difficult to say what would happen. I don't know if Himanshu, Harshit, have anything further to add to this question.
I could add a few comments there. I hope I had a crystal ball to kind of look into it and say, here is what the market would go to. But I think it's not just a PV phenomena. It's I think a phenomena that is there across industries, across sectors. And so, typically those things may take its own time to correct. If it was just an industry-wide phenomena, it would be predictable. But because it is at such a multiple industries involved, I think it may just take its own course over time. So,
right. Thank you, Himanshu. Harshit, I don't know if you'd like to comment, or should we go to the next question?
Yeah, I think it's covered and I answered also. It's too dynamic right now. So we can go to the next question, guys.
Okay, great. So, well, I think the last question here on the list, I think is how the increase of the price of commodities and logistics and modules affect developments. I think we have covered that. So I'll go to the more specific questions that we have here, and one of them is how do you optimize the OpEx of tracking systems? And I think Himanshu, you mentioned gave us a few ideas as to what happens when you use larger modules. So maybe if you give us a summary here. So how do you optimize the operation of tracking system on when using these modules?
Got it. So in general, when the first thing we actually do is address it in terms of the design itself. So when we are looking at the especially the electromechanical parts, which kind of affect the operating period of the cycle, we ensure that they are designed adequately for the design life of the plant, 25 or 30 years, depending upon what is required. And once a component has been designed for that kind of a lifespan, it then becomes very minimalistic in terms of overall O&M for that component. So in terms of a general O&M play, if you look at in a PV plant, which are the biggest contributors of O&M, you will find that tracker is really not that big a contributor in terms of the O&M play. It is more in terms of the vegetation management and things like that, which kind of play a bigger role. And tracker comes in more like a general, part-wise, looking at the overall feasibility. We also offer, monitoring services which ensure the customers have a visibility into how these parts are behaving, and that gives them a good view in terms of, whether components are prone to failures, and that gives them a pre-insight even before the components fail. So they're well prepared, and that minimizes their downtime.
Thank you very much. I don't know if Husam or Harshita would like to comment on this. No? Okay. So on the there's some questions here on wind loads, and according to John Nolan, large format modules are more susceptible to wind damage, and tracker manufacturers will have to take this into account. So is this the case? And what he's been doing from what a tracker manufacturer is doing to improve on designs and minimize this risk. I think this is for you as well, Himanshu.
Let me take this. So yes, that is true that, as the, it's physics basically, as the size of the module increases, the length increases, as I explained, the loads on the tracker will increase, right? It is going to increase, and it's a squared function. So as the length increases, the loads will increase by 2 or 3x. So it's going to have that effect. And the way NextTracker is addressing this is that we go back to the wind tunnel test, we go back to the basics, we understand what these new loads are with the new modules, and then redesign the tracker with those configurations, right? And that's how we ensure that we avoid all these failure modes that the tracker can be witness to. So the short answer to that is yes, that is true, and that is why we need to redesign. We just don't take the legacy design and just put in a new same module or a new module. It needs to actually go through the whole redesign process itself.
Thank you very much, Himanshu. I think we have the last question we have here on the list is related, and Niraj Mehta asks for concepts and insights for doing portrait configurations with a cleaning robot and for a large format module. So I don't know which one of you would like to comment on this. Is it possible to have like doing portrait with a cleaning robot for large format models?
Yeah, maybe I can just touch upon, then Himanshu can take it up. Yes, it is definitely possible. So we are implementing right now one project where we are having large format modules with the 2P tracker, the 300 megawatt one which I was presenting before. So that is with the 2P tracker and including an automatic robotic solution. So in terms of compatibility, we do a compatibility test before giving clearances for mass manufacturing for the robotic vendor. So along with the module which has been selected, the robotic cleaning system as well as the tracker, all the three together, a factory level compatibility test is done. And after that only we give the mass manufacturing clearance as well. So definitely it is possible.
Thank you, Harshit. I think Himanshu, you definitely want to say something, so go for it.
Sure. So yes, as Harshita pointed out, like yes, it is possible, it is achievable. However, I just want to let the audience know that these are two evolving fields. Like the large module format itself is evolving, and so is the robotic cleaning solution itself. It's not a mature solution today. It is still evolving itself. And so what we really need to do is, when we are considering both together as a system, a lot of tests, as Harshita pointed out, in terms of ensuring the compatibility, ensuring the testing needs is done, is required. But definitely it is possible, it is achievable, provided you take the right steps and the right tests that are performed.
Thank you very much, Himanshu. Husam, I don't know if you'd like to comment on this.
Actually, I think, well, from our point of view, the move towards robotics seems to be like now the mainstream. Now, yeah, I agree that it's an evolving development. The technology itself is not complicated. I think the difficulty is that you need to customize the solution for every modules and trackers that you would select for every project. And that's I think where the discussion of standardization is probably maybe of relevance in here. The robotics have been demonstrated, at least now we are seeing it in one of our projects, to have contributed significantly in terms of operation and maintenance, in terms of the concept of how we do operation and maintenance, and especially when it comes to desert environment where water may not be necessarily available for you to do the conventional cleaning. So the move towards robotics I think will be always the case in every project. We need to be patient on the involvement of that solution, and I think given the scope of that solution compared to the overall configuration, I think that's where we need to. Someone has to take a more proactive role, whether it's the PV module suppliers or the tracker suppliers, to say tell you what, we'll be doing the extra mile. Other than that, the developers and the EPC contractor will be going around shopping for the most cost-effective and the most reliable solution, and ask the module supplier and the tracker supplier to integrate it. And it's not really, I think, a convenient base to be in. So I think that's more. I think this discussion kind of should trigger the importance and on how we should deal with it.
So and just to close the webinar as well, because we have overrun, but it's great because we're having an interesting discussion. But do you think that all of these solutions will tend over time towards standardization?
That's what we hope for. I mean, that's what everyone is hoping for. But for us, we are a developer who have been, dealing with all of those developments and every project. We have that agility and flexibility to absorb, understand, and adapt and adopt. But I think that's it's what's happening in every industry. I mean, we saw it in the telecommunication industry. We saw it in other industries where different players come with their own solutions, their technologies, but someone has to ultimately prevail. So who that would be, I think that would be a question of reliability, integrity of the solutions, and competitiveness, and those are the ones who will determine how the market will look like.
Great. Well, Sam, thank you very much for that answer, and I'd like to thank all our speakers, Himanshu, Harshita, and everyone who's been here in the audience with us today. Yeah, thank you for being here with us. We'll actually, as I said, we have recorded the session. We'll send you the recording and the slides in the next couple of days. So, well, see you here next time at atainsights.com. Have a good day. Bye.